In the 1970s, Las Vegas was a kingdom built on a single, unbreakable law. The house always wins. It was a neon oasis in the desert, fueled by impossible odds and broken dreams. Every spin of the wheel, every flip of the card, was a carefully calculated transaction designed to separate you from your money. The system was perfect, sealed, and absolute. But in 1976, a small group of outsiders believed they had found a flaw. Not with a scheme, not with a stacked deck, but with the laws of physics themselves. They weren't criminals or con artists. They were physics graduate students from the University of California, Santa Cruz. And they were about to build a machine to bring the kingdom to its knees. This is the story of a secret war fought not with guns, but with equations. At the heart of it were J. Doyne Farmer and Norman Packard, two brilliant minds obsessed with a new, radical science called chaos theory. While their peers studied the stars, they studied the unpredictable, the weather, the stock market, the turbulent flow of water. To them, the world wasn't a series of random events. It was a set of complex, dynamical systems, and they believed that with enough data, anything could be predicted. One night, surrounded by textbooks and half-empty coffee cups, they landed on the ultimate challenge, the roulette wheel. To the casino, it was a symbol of pure chance. To them, it was just another physical system waiting to be solved. The plan was as audacious as it was ingenious. They would build a computer from scratch, small enough to hide in a shoe. This was 1977. The Apple I was barely a year old. There were no microprocessors they could just buy. So they built their own, a 12-bit machine powered by a mess of wires and custom-etched circuit boards. The operation required two people. The first, the data taker, would stand near the table, their computer hidden in their footwear. As the croupier released the ball, they would covertly tap a microswitch under their big toe, once when the ball passed a reference point, and again when the wheel's green zero passed the same point. The computer in their shoe would calculate the velocities, predict which octant of the wheel the ball was most likely to land in, and transmit the answer. But how do you receive a secret message in the middle of a crowded casino? The answer was a second person, the bettor, standing across the table. Hidden in their clothes were a receiver and a set of tiny solenoids, electromagnets, strapped to their chest. The computer in the shoe would send a radio signal, and the solenoids would buzz against the bettor's skin. One buzz for Sector 1, 2 for Sector 2, and so on. It was a silent, invisible language of code, a direct link from physics to fortune. They called their secret collective the Eudaemons, after the Greek concept of a state of human flourishing through reason. Their lab became a clandestine workshop, filled with the smell of burning solder and the hum of machinery that shouldn't exist. After months of failures and late-night debugging, they finally tested it on a full-size roulette wheel they'd bought and installed in their apartment. The result was staggering. The machine gave them a 44% edge over the house. The game of chance was no longer a game. It was a math problem, and they had just found the answer. In the summer of 1977, they drove into the Lion's Den. They checked into a cheap motel off the Strip, the final components of their system hidden in their luggage. Walking onto the floor of Binion's casino was like entering another world. The cacophony of slot machines, the murmur of the crowds, the cold, watchful eyes of the pit bosses. Farmer was the first data taker. Heart pounding, he approached a table, trying to look like just another tourist. He slid his foot into position, his toe hovering over the switch. The croupier's voice cut through the noise. No more bets. The ball began its dance. Farmer tapped his toe. Once, twice. He waited for the bettor across the table to move, but nothing happened. He tried again on the next spin. Tap, tap, still nothing. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The system was failing. Back in the room, they discovered the problem. The custom soldered connections, so perfect in the lab, had been knocked loose in transit. Worse, the radio signals were being drowned out by the electronic noise on the casino floor. It was a catastrophic failure. But then another team member noticed something. The solenoids in the bettor's rig were still buzzing, but faintly. They realized the signal was getting through, just barely. The problem wasn't the transmission, it was the reception. One of the Eudaemons, a woman who had meticulously insulated the entire system, had done her job too well. In a frantic, last-ditch effort, they tore out the insulation, exposing the raw circuitry, making it more powerful but also infinitely more dangerous. A stray signal or a short circuit could deliver a painful electrical shock directly to the bettor's skin. There was no time to test it. They had one more shot. This time Norman Packard was the bettor. He stood at the table, his hands trembling slightly. Across from him, the data taker gave a subtle nod. The wheel spun. The ball dropped. A moment of agonizing silence. And then he felt it. A sharp, distinct buzz against his ribs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sector 5. He pushed a stack of chips onto the corresponding numbers, his face a mask of casual indifference. The air was thick with smoke and tension. The ball slowed, rattling as it searched for a home. It settled. Number 13, it was in the predicted octant. They had won. Then they did it again. And again. They weren't playing roulette anymore. They were running an experiment, methodically extracting money from a system that didn't know it was being bled dry. There was no cheering, no high fives, just the quiet, terrifying thrill of seeing their creation work perfectly. Over the next few days, they moved from casino to casino, a ghost in the machine, their winnings slowly growing. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it was over. They had won $10,000. They had proven their theory. The point was never to get rich. It was to see if it could be done. The Eudaemons packed their bags, disassembled the computer for the last time, and drove out of Las Vegas, leaving the kingdom of chance completely undisturbed and unaware. They never spoke of it again for decades. Farmer and Packard would go on to become giants in the field of chaos theory, applying the same predictive models to the chaos of the global financial markets. But for one brief, brilliant summer, they turned a game of luck into a science. They built a computer that could see the future 30 seconds at a time, hidden in plain sight, proving that even in a world built on randomness, there are always patterns, there are always rules. You just have to be smart enough to find them.